My hands shook the day I finally whispered the truth out loud. 10 years of silence, 10 years of swallowing my pain, 10 years of looking at my own son and pretending everything was fine, when deep inside it wasn't. I didn't want it, I never asked for it, but for a whole decade, my son forced me into silence. Every night when the house went quiet, I felt his shadow hovering around me. He would remind me of the secret I must never tell. He would tell me that no one would believe an old woman like me. He would look into my eyes, and his words would cut me like a knife. "You are mine now, mother. Speak, and you will lose everything." I wanted to scream. I wanted to run. But where would I go at my age? Who would believe that my very own son, the child I raised with my 2 hands, could do this to me? My body was weak, but my soul carried scars deeper than anyone could see. And the worst part? I stayed silent. For 10 whole years. But let me take you back to how it all began. Before I continue, let me introduce myself. My name is Margaret. I'm 67 years old, speaking to you from a small town in Georgia, USA. Before we go deeper into my story, please, if you're watching this right now, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe, and click on the notification bell, because there are many more real stories like mine that I will be sharing. And tell me in the comments, from which part of the country are you watching this? I'd love to know. Now back to my story. It all started when my husband, Robert, passed away. He was the love of my life, my anchor. Losing him was like losing the air I breathed. My son, Daniel, was supposed to be my comfort during that time. He was my first child, the one I had sacrificed so much for. He promised me I would never be alone, and I believed him. At first, everything seemed normal. Daniel moved back into the house to take care of me. He would cook for me sometimes, drive me to church, and even handle the bills when I felt overwhelmed. I thought to myself, God truly blessed me with a good son. But slowly, things changed. Daniel started controlling little parts of my life. He didn't want me to visit friends. He said they only came to gossip. He didn't want me to answer the phone unless he was around. He said strangers could trick me. At first, I thought it was love and protection. But soon, it became chains. One night, he came into my room while I was sleeping. I'll never forget that night. His eyes were dark, and his face looked like a stranger's. He whispered things no son should ever whisper to his mother. I froze, I couldn't believe it. When I tried to push him away, he said, "If you ever tell anyone, they'll laugh at you. You'll lose the family. You'll lose everything." That was the beginning of my 10 years of silence. I carried the weight of shame, fear, and confusion. I wanted to tell my daughter, but Daniel always stood in the way. He would smile in front of the family, but at night, he was a monster I couldn't escape. Sometimes I prayed for death. Other times I prayed for courage. But every morning, I wore a fake smile, cooked breakfast, and played the role of a normal mother. Nobody suspected a thing. But one day, something happened that almost blew my secret wide open. That morning, my granddaughter, Lily, came into my room without knocking. She was just 8 years old, full of life and laughter. But what she saw that day, it was enough to shake the ground beneath my feet. And from that moment, my silence was no longer safe. The door creaked open, and before I could even react, Lily's little voice filled the room. "Grandma, are you awake?" I froze, my heart hammering in my chest. Daniel was still sitting at the edge of my bed, his face twisted with anger that she had walked in without knocking. My hands trembled under the blanket as I forced a weak smile. "Yes, sweetheart, I'm awake," I said, my voice shaking. Lily's innocent eyes darted between me and her father. She tilted her head curiously. "Daddy, why are you in Grandma's room so early in the morning?" Daniel stood quickly, towering over her. His voice was calm, too calm. "Just checking on your grandma, Lily. She wasn't feeling well last night." But I knew that little girl was too smart. She narrowed her eyes, looking at me with suspicion. My lips wanted to cry out, "Help me, Lily. Please help me." But fear glued them shut. Daniel ushered her out of the room, shutting the door harder than necessary. When he turned back to me, his eyes were fire. If you ever let her suspect something, he hissed, I'll make sure nobody believes you. Do you understand? Tears rolled down my face as I nodded, too weak to fight. That was the power he had over me, fear mixed with shame. That day, I couldn't look Lily in the eyes. She kept asking if I was okay, bringing me small flowers from the garden and sitting close to me like she knew something was wrong. Children have a way of seeing what adults hide. Days passed, and I tried to push the incident to the back of my mind. But Daniel's control grew worse. He no longer allowed me to leave the house without him. Even at church, he sat beside me, gripping my arm tightly, as if to remind me that silence was my prison. The only moments of peace I had were when I sat by the window at night, whispering prayers into the stars. God, give me strength. Show me a way out. But instead of answers, more storms came. One Sunday afternoon, my daughter, Rebecca, came to visit. She was Daniel's younger sister, full of fire and questions. She hugged me tight and whispered, Mom, you look thinner every time I see you. What's wrong? I opened my mouth to speak, but Daniel's shadow loomed in the doorway. He interrupted before I could answer. Mom's fine, Rebecca. Stop worrying too much. Rebecca gave him a sharp look, one that said she didn't trust him. And I saw something in her eyes that day, suspicion. But I was too afraid to confirm it. When Rebecca left, Daniel turned on me. His voice was cold as ice. Do you want to ruin this family? Do you want to destroy everything we have? I shook my head, sobbing quietly. No. I just want peace. He leaned closer, his words stabbing me like knives. Then you will stay silent. Forever. I thought my silence was saving the family. But deep inside, it was destroying me. And then it happened. Late one night, I woke to the sound of voices downstairs. I quietly stepped out of my room and tiptoed to the hallway. To my horror, I heard Daniel arguing with someone on the phone. His voice was low but sharp. She's getting weaker. I don't know how much longer I can keep her quiet. My blood ran cold. He wasn't just threatening me anymore, he was telling someone else about it. But who? And why? As I leaned closer to hear, the floor creaked beneath my foot. Daniel's head snapped up, his eyes locking onto mine from the bottom of the stairs. In that moment, I knew my life was hanging by a thread. His eyes froze me where I stood. For a second, I couldn't breathe. Daniel's voice dropped to a whisper on the phone. I'll call you back, before he slipped it into his pocket and started up the stairs toward me. Each step he took sounded like thunder in my ears. My knees went weak, and I gripped the banister to keep myself from collapsing. What did you hear? His voice was low, dangerous. I only heard you talking, Daniel. I stammered, my heart pounding. He stood in front of me, his face inches away from mine. His jaw clenched, and I could see the fury in his eyes. You're lying. You always want to ruin things. I shook my head quickly. No, I didn't. Please. For a long moment, he just stared at me, then suddenly smiled, a smile that chilled me more than his anger. Good. Because if you ever repeat anything you hear in this house, you won't just lose your voice, you'll lose the people you love. I gasped. Did he mean Rebecca? Did he mean little Lily? The fear trapped me even deeper. I went back to my room that night, crying into my pillow, begging God for a way out. I felt like a prisoner in my own home. The days that followed were heavy. Daniel watched me like a hawk, never leaving me alone for long. Even when I wanted to sit outside on the porch, he would stand nearby, pretending to water the plants but really just guarding me. But something inside me started to change. I realized that if I didn't speak, if I didn't fight back, then he would keep winning, and my silence would keep killing me slowly. One evening, when Daniel left briefly to buy groceries, Rebecca showed up at the house unannounced. She hugged me tightly and whispered, Mom, tell me the truth. What is going on here? You look broken. I wanted so badly to pour everything out. My lips trembled, my heart screamed, tell her. But the fear of Daniel's threats held me back. Instead, I smiled weakly and said, I'm just tired, darling. Don't worry about me. But Rebecca didn't look convinced. She squeezed my hand and said, "I know Daniel is hiding something, and I'll find out what it is." Her words sparked a small flame of hope in me. Maybe, just maybe, I wasn't as alone as I thought. That night, after Rebecca left, Daniel returned. He looked at me strangely, like he knew she had been there. Then something happened that shook me to the core. When he walked into the kitchen to put the groceries down, his phone buzzed on the counter. The name on the screen flashed before my eyes. It wasn't a stranger. It wasn't a business call. It was a family member. I couldn't believe it. Daniel wasn't just hiding secrets from me. He was working with someone else in the family. My breath caught in my throat. Which one of them was it? Who else was part of this cruel game against me? Before I could see more, Daniel snatched the phone, his face darkening as he realized I had seen the name. And, in that instant, I knew he was willing to do anything to keep me from finding out the truth. The name on that screen burned into my memory, though I only caught it for a split second before Daniel grabbed the phone. My stomach dropped. Could it really be someone in my own family? Someone who was supposed to protect me? I forced my voice to stay calm. "Who was that, Daniel?" His lips curled into a mocking smile. "Just someone checking in on me. None of your business." But I knew it wasn't just someone. The name was too familiar. It was short and it started with an R. My heart twisted. Could it be Rebecca? No. My daughter would never join hands with her brother to hurt me. She was the one who always suspected something was wrong. But then again, hadn't she been asking too many questions lately? The doubt was eating me alive. For the next few days, I watched Daniel carefully. Every time his phone buzzed, he walked out of the room. He lowered his voice when he answered, and sometimes I caught him glancing at me from the corner of his eye, as if daring me to question him again. One night, I heard him whispering in the kitchen. I tiptoed to the doorway and leaned closer. "She's getting restless," he said. "But don't worry, she won't tell anyone. I've made sure of that." My heart pounded in my chest. The other voice was too muffled for me to hear, but I recognized the laughter that followed. A woman's laughter. I stepped back, nearly tripping over my own feet. My mind raced. Could it be Rebecca? Or maybe my sister-in-law, Anna, who had always disliked me. That night, I lay awake in bed, questions swirling in my head like a storm. My silence was no longer just protecting Daniel, it was protecting whoever was helping him. And that thought broke me even more. The next morning, Rebecca came to visit again. She sat beside me at the kitchen table, holding my hand. "Mom," she whispered, "you need to tell me the truth. I can't stand seeing you like this." Tears welled in my eyes, but before I could speak, Daniel stormed into the room. His face was red with fury. "Rebecca, stop filling Mom's head with nonsense," he snapped. Rebecca stood, glaring at him. "What are you hiding, Daniel? Why are you so afraid of me talking to her?" For the first time, I saw fear flicker in his eyes. Not anger, not control, fear. He pushed Rebecca toward the door and barked, "Leave. Now." Rebecca hesitated, her eyes softening as they met mine. "Mom, please. Just one word. Are you safe?" I opened my mouth. My lips trembled. My heart screamed the truth. But Daniel's hand gripped my shoulder so tightly, it sent pain shooting through me. I whispered, "I'm fine." Rebecca's face fell. She shook her head and walked out, slamming the door behind her. As soon as she was gone, Daniel dragged me to my room. His voice was ice cold. "If you ever even think of telling her, I swear you'll regret it." I cried silently, praying for strength. But that night, something happened that changed everything. I was lying in bed when I heard the faint sound of footsteps outside my window. At first, I thought it was Daniel. But then, a small piece of folded paper slid through the crack in the window frame and landed on the floor. My hands shook as I picked it up. In messy handwriting, it read, "I know what Daniel is doing to you. You're not alone. Don't give up." My heart stopped. Someone knew. Someone was watching. Someone was finally reaching out to help me. But who? My hands trembled as I read the note over and over again. The words were like water to a dying soul. For the first time in 10 years, I felt a spark of hope. Someone knew. Someone had seen. Someone cared. But who? I carefully folded the note and tucked it under my pillow before Daniel came back upstairs. My heart raced with every sound in the hallway, terrified he might discover it. The next morning, as I cooked breakfast, I tried to act normal. Daniel sat at the table, scrolling through his phone. His eyes darted up at me every so often, sharp and suspicious. I wondered if he already knew someone had reached out to me. "Mom," he said suddenly, "you've been acting strange. Is something wrong?" My stomach flipped, but I forced a smile. "Just tired, Daniel. I didn't sleep well." He studied me for a moment, then leaned back in his chair. "Good. I don't want you keeping secrets from me. You understand." I nodded quickly, but inside, my mind was racing. Whoever left that note was risking everything. If Daniel found out, he could destroy them the way he had destroyed me. Later that afternoon, when Daniel went out to run errands, I rushed to the window where the note had come through. I pressed my face against the glass, scanning the yard, the street, the trees. Nothing. Only silence. But then I noticed something strange. A small trinket, a silver cross necklace, was lying on the ground just below the window. I picked it up with shaking hands. It wasn't mine, and I knew exactly who it belonged to. Rebecca. My heart pounded. Could it be? Was she the one who slipped me the note? Had she known all along? The thought filled me with both joy and fear. If she knew, then maybe she could save me. But if Daniel found out she was involved, he would go after her too. That evening, when Rebecca called, I wanted to tell her everything. But Daniel answered the phone before I could reach it. His voice was sharp. "She's fine, Rebecca. Stop bothering us." Then he hung up without even letting me speak. Tears burned my eyes. He was cutting me off from the only person who might help me. But that night, something even worse happened. I woke to the sound of glass shattering downstairs. My heart leapt into my throat. I sat up, listening. Heavy footsteps moved through the living room. Daniel's voice bellowed in rage. "Who's there?" I rushed to the door of my bedroom, peeking through the crack. And then I saw it. A figure in black slipped through the broken window and disappeared into the darkness outside. Daniel chased after them, shouting into the night. I froze in shock. Whoever left me that note had just broken into the house. And now Daniel knew someone was onto him. The night was filled with shouting and the crunch of heavy boots on gravel as Daniel stormed after the intruder. I stood frozen at my bedroom door, clutching the frame as though it could protect me. My heart pounded so loudly, I thought it would give me away. Minutes later, Daniel returned, slamming the front door so hard the walls shook. His face was drenched in sweat, his eyes burning like wildfire. "Did you see who it was?" I asked softly, pretending to be concerned. He shot me a look so sharp it could cut glass. "Stay out of it, Mother. This is my house. My rules. Nobody sneaks in here unless they want to die." The way he said die made my blood run cold. He was angrier than I had ever seen him. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, whispering silent prayers. The note under my pillow felt like a hidden treasure, proof that someone out there still cared. But now Daniel was on edge, watching my every move like a hawk. The next morning, he locked all the windows and reinforced the doors. "Nobody gets in or out without me knowing," he declared. His paranoia grew worse each day. He began checking my phone, reading my mail, even following me from room to room. It was like living in a cage. But then something strange happened. One afternoon, while Daniel was out, I went to tidy his room. My hands shook as I folded his clothes, my heart begging me to leave. But curiosity won. I opened the drawer of his bedside table, and what I found nearly made me collapse. Inside was a stack of envelopes. Each one had my name on it, but they had never reached me. Letters. Dozens of them. From Rebecca. I tore one open, my tears blurring the words. "Mom, please talk to me. I know something is wrong. I can feel it. Daniel is hiding something, and I won't stop until I know the truth. Please, don't let him silence you. I love you." My hands shook as I held the letters. He had been keeping them from me. Every word my daughter had written, every desperate attempt to reach me, he had stolen. I wanted to scream. I wanted to run to Rebecca and throw my arms around her. But before I could hide the letters, I heard heavy footsteps on the porch. Daniel was back. I stuffed the envelopes under my blouse just as he walked in. His eyes scanned me like a predator, sizing up its prey. "What are you doing in here?" he demanded. "I was just cleaning," I whispered, trying to keep my voice steady. His eyes narrowed, suspicion dripping from his stare. He stepped closer, sniffing the air as if he could smell my fear. "You're lying." I shook my head quickly. "No, Daniel. I swear." For a moment, he just stared at me, and then he stormed out, muttering curses under his breath. My knees gave way, and I sank to the floor, clutching the hidden letters to my chest. But as I held them, I noticed something else inside the drawer. A small, locked box. And on top of it was a folded piece of paper with only 3 chilling words written in Daniel's handwriting. "Plan for Mother." My hands went cold as I stared at the words. Plan for Mother. I wanted to open that locked box right then and there, but my body froze. My mind screamed at me. What plan? What has he been planning for me all this time? I stuffed the paper back and quickly closed the drawer just as I heard Daniel's heavy footsteps coming up the stairs. I rushed out of his room, my heart hammering against my ribs. That night, I couldn't eat. I pushed the food around my plate while Daniel watched me closely. He seemed restless, pacing the kitchen, muttering to himself under his breath. "Something's not right," he said suddenly, glaring at me. "You've been different lately." I forced a weak smile. "I'm just tired, Daniel." But I knew my face couldn't hide the truth. The letters hidden under my mattress, the locked box in his room, the note that someone had slid through my window, they were all pieces of a puzzle. And that puzzle scared me more than anything. Later that night, after Daniel finally went to bed, I crept into the hallway and pressed my ear to his door. The faint sound of his voice drifted through. He was on the phone again. "Yes, soon," he whispered. "I'll take care of it. She won't be a problem anymore." My heart stopped.
He was talking about me.
I stumbled back, covering my mouth to keep from screaming. I ran into my room, clutching the letters from Rebecca. My tears soaked the paper as I whispered, "God, please don't let him hurt me." The next morning, I made a decision. I couldn't wait anymore. I had to get that locked box. When Daniel left to buy groceries, I slipped into his room. My hands trembled as I pulled the box from the drawer. It was heavier than I expected. I searched quickly for a key, but found nothing. Desperation filled me. I grabbed a hairpin from my pocket, my fingers shaking as I tried to force it open.
Click.
The box unlocked. Inside were stacks of photographs, receipts, and notes scribbled in Daniel's handwriting. My eyes widened as I flipped through them. The photos were of me, sleeping in bed, sitting by the window, even bathing Lily when she was a baby. Every private moment of my life, captured without my knowing. The receipts were for chains, locks, and security equipment. But the notes, oh God, the notes. Mother is mine. She belongs to me. If she talks, she dies. No one can take her away. My breath caught. My stomach twisted. He had been planning this all along. For 10 years, I thought I was surviving in silence, but I was really living inside his twisted design. I shoved the papers back into the box, my hands trembling. Just as I was about to close it, a photograph slipped out. It wasn't of me this time. It was of Rebecca. My blood ran cold. Written on the back in Daniel's handwriting were the words, "If Mother speaks, Rebecca pays the price." And then, the door slammed shut behind me. I turned, my heart leaping into my throat. Daniel stood there, his face pale with fury, his eyes locked on the open box in my hands. The box slipped from my trembling hands and crashed onto the floor, spilling its horrible contents across the carpet. Photos, notes, receipts, all of his twisted secrets scattered in plain sight. Daniel's face turned red, his jaw tightening as his fists curled at his sides. "What have you done?" I was just cleaning," I whispered, my voice shaking. My knees buckled, but I forced myself to stand tall. Cleaning, he roared, stepping toward me. You went through my private things, Mother? I shook my head frantically, though the evidence lay at our feet. Please, Daniel. I didn't mean. He grabbed me by the arms so hard I cried out in pain. His eyes burned with a madness I had never seen before. You think you can betray me? After everything I've done to protect you? Protect me? I choked, tears streaming down my face. You've ruined me. For a split second, silence filled the room. His grip tightened. I thought he might strike me, but then, slowly, he let go and laughed. A hollow, chilling laugh. You're weak, Mother. Always have been. That's why you need me. Without me, you'd be nothing. Do you hear me? Nothing. He shoved me backward, and I fell onto the bed, gasping for breath. He gathered the papers and stuffed them back into the box with frantic movements. His eyes darted toward me as if daring me to make a sound. When he finished, he leaned close, his lips almost brushing my ear. If you ever touch my things again, Rebecca will disappear. And this time, I won't bring her back. My heart stopped. He had just confirmed what I feared. Rebecca wasn't safe. The rest of the day, I walked like a ghost. My body ached, my mind swirled. Daniel hovered around me, calmer now, but his calmness was worse than his rage. It was the calm of someone who believed he had total control. That night, I pretended to sleep while my tears soaked the pillow. I prayed, Lord, please give me strength. Please send me a way out. Then, just past midnight, I heard a faint tapping at the window again. I sat up quickly, my heart racing. Slowly, I pushed the curtain aside. And there she was, Rebecca. Her face pale in the moonlight, her eyes wide with urgency. She pressed her finger to her lips, signaling me to be quiet, then held up another note. I opened the window just enough to take it, my hands shaking. On the paper, in Rebecca's handwriting, were 6 words that made my heart stop. Daniel is dangerous. I know everything. Before I could even process the message, the floor creaked in the hallway. Daniel was awake, and his footsteps were coming straight toward my room. My heart slammed in my chest like a drum. Rebecca crouched outside the window, eyes wide, silently mouthing, "Hide the note." I shoved the paper under my pillow just as Daniel's shadow filled the hallway. The doorknob rattled. Mother, his voice called, sharp and suspicious. I forced myself to lie down, pulling the blanket up to my chin. Yes, Daniel? I'm just trying to sleep. The door creaked open, and he stepped inside. His eyes swept the room, cold and calculating. Why are you awake? I heard voices.
My throat went dry.
I shook my head quickly.
No voices.
Just me praying. He narrowed his eyes, staring at me long enough that I thought my heart would explode. Then, suddenly, he strode across the room and yanked the curtains open. But Rebecca was gone. The night air rushed in, cool against my face. My hands trembled under the blanket, clenching the note so tightly it crumpled. Daniel turned back to me, suspicion written all over his face. He stepped closer to the bed and leaned down, his eyes boring into mine. If I ever find out you've been talking to anyone, you won't live to regret it. I bit my lip, holding back tears. I understand. He lingered for a moment, then finally walked out, slamming the door behind him. The second he left, I grabbed the note and read it again under the pale moonlight. Daniel is dangerous. I know everything. Everything. The weight of those words crushed me. Rebecca knew. She had discovered what I had been too afraid to say for 10 long years. But what would Daniel do if he realized she was the one slipping me messages? My blood ran cold at the thought. The next morning, Daniel was restless. He paced the house like a lion, checking windows, double-bolting doors, muttering under his breath. Someone's been here. Someone's watching us. He even searched my room, pulling open drawers, lifting my mattress. My breath caught as he neared the pillow where I had hidden the note. But just before he reached it, his phone rang. He snatched it up, growling into the receiver. What is it? I couldn't hear the other voice, but his reply made my skin crawl. Tonight. I'll handle her tonight. My blood froze. Handle her? Was he talking about me? I sat silently on the bed, my hands trembling in my lap. That night, when the house grew quiet, I sat awake, staring at the door. Every creak in the wood, every whisper of the wind, made my heart leap. Then, just after midnight, the doorknob turned slowly, and Daniel stepped in, holding something behind his back. The door creaked as Daniel stepped inside, his face hidden in shadows. My breath caught when I saw the glint of metal in his hand.
A knife.
Daniel. My voice shook, my body trembling under the blanket. What are you doing? He closed the door softly, almost too calmly. His voice was low, almost whispering. You ruined everything, Mother. You went through my things. You've been talking to someone. Don't lie to me, I know. Tears welled in my eyes. Please, Daniel. I'm your mother. I raised you. Why are you doing this to me? For a moment, his face softened, just a flicker, like the little boy I once held in my arms. But then his eyes hardened again. Because you belong to me. Always have. Always will. And if you can't stay silent, then I'll make sure you're silent forever. My heart pounded. The walls felt like they were closing in. I whispered a prayer under my breath. Lord, protect me. Just as Daniel stepped closer, raising the knife, a loud crash came from downstairs. Daniel, a voice roared. It was Rebecca. His head snapped toward the door, fury flashing in his eyes. She shouldn't be here, he growled. I seized the moment. Summoning every ounce of strength left in my old body, I grabbed the lamp from my bedside table and swung it at him. The lamp shattered against his shoulder, and the knife clattered to the floor. Run, Mom! Rebecca's voice screamed from the hallway. I stumbled from the bed as Daniel roared in pain and rage. He lunged for the knife, but Rebecca burst into the room, her face pale with terror. Behind her, 2 police officers stormed in, guns drawn. Drop the weapon, they shouted. Daniel froze, his chest heaving, his eyes darting between me, Rebecca, and the officers. For the first time in 10 years, I saw fear in his eyes. Slowly, he dropped the knife. The officers grabbed him, forcing him to the ground in handcuffs as he cursed and screamed. Rebecca rushed to my side, pulling me into her arms. It's over, Mom. You're safe now. I know everything. I've been working with the police for weeks. I broke down in sobs, clinging to her like a lifeline. I wanted to tell you. But I was so afraid. She stroked my hair, whispering, You don't have to be afraid anymore. He can't hurt you again. The officers dragged Daniel out, his screams echoing down the hallway. I collapsed into Rebecca's arms, the weight of 10 years finally lifting from my chest. For the first time in a decade, I could breathe. And as I looked into my daughter's eyes, I realized something important. Silence had been my prison, but courage, speaking the truth, even when it terrified me, was the key that set me free. To everyone listening to my story now, let me tell you this. Never let fear silence you. No matter how heavy your burden, no matter who tries to control you, speak your truth. Because silence only protects the abuser, never the victim. The house felt eerily quiet after the police dragged Daniel out in handcuffs. For the first time in 10 years, his heavy footsteps didn't echo through the hallway, and his voice didn't thunder against the walls. But instead of peace, I felt something else, an emptiness. I sat in my chair by the window, clutching a blanket around my shoulders, staring into the night. Rebecca sat on the edge of the bed, her eyes red from crying. Mom, she whispered softly, you should try to sleep. But how could I? After 10 years of silence, after 10 years of being forced to live under Daniel's control, my mind wouldn't stop racing. What if he comes back? I asked, my voice trembling. Rebecca reached for my hand. He won't. They took him to the county jail. He's not coming back here. Her words were meant to soothe me, but they couldn't erase the memory of the knife in his hand, the fury in his eyes, the sound of his voice promising I would never be free. That night, I drifted into a restless sleep, haunted by nightmares. In my dreams, Daniel stood at the foot of my bed, whispering, "You belong to me, Mother. Always." I woke up drenched in sweat, my chest heaving, only to find Rebecca sitting by my side, holding my hand as if she knew the nightmares would come. The next few days moved like a blur. Police officers came and went, asking questions, writing down every detail of my story. I had to relive everything, every cruel word. Every night I cried myself to sleep, every time Daniel reminded me that silence was my only choice. But the hardest part came when the news spread through town. Neighbors whispered. Some shook their heads in disbelief. Others looked at me with pity. And some even asked if maybe I was exaggerating. 10 years, one neighbor muttered as I passed by. How could she let that happen for 10 years? Those words pierced me deeper than any knife. They didn't understand. They didn't know how fear could build walls around you until you no longer believed escape was possible. One evening, as Rebecca and I sat together on the porch, I finally asked the question that had been burning in my heart. "Rebecca, how long have you known? How did you find out?" She hesitated, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "Mom, I noticed things. The way you avoided talking on the phone, the way you flinched whenever I mentioned Dad, the way your eyes carried so much sadness. At first, I thought you were just tired. But then I found Daniel's journal when I came to visit last year. The things he wrote." Her voice cracked. I couldn't just ignore it anymore. So, I went to the police. I held her hand tightly, tears streaming down my face. "You saved me, Rebecca. If it wasn't for you, I wouldn't be alive right now." She shook her head.
No, Mom.
"You saved yourself. You found the courage to fight back. That's what matters." For the first time, I felt a flicker of pride, something I hadn't felt in years. But just as I allowed myself to breathe, the phone rang. Rebecca answered, her brow furrowing as she listened. When she hung up, her face was pale. "Who was it?" I asked, fear tightening in my chest. She swallowed hard. "It was the police. Mom, Daniel made bail." My blanket slipped from my shoulders as my whole body turned cold. My hands shook as I whispered, "He's coming back for me." The air in the house turned heavy the moment Rebecca told me the news. Daniel was out.
Free.
Somewhere in the same town as us. I clutched the arms of my chair, my knuckles white. No, it can't be. They promised me I was safe. Rebecca knelt in front of me, her hands gripping mine tightly. "Mom, listen to me. The police put a restraining order in place. He's not allowed to come near you. If he tries, he'll go straight back to jail." I shook my head, tears spilling down my cheeks. "A piece of paper won't stop Daniel. He doesn't care about the law. He never has. If he wants to get to me, he will." That night, I couldn't sleep. Every creak of the floorboards, every gust of wind against the window made me jump. I sat in bed with the light on, staring at the door, afraid it would open any moment. The next day, Rebecca insisted we go to the grocery store together, just to get out of the house. I hesitated, but part of me thought maybe if I acted normal, I could trick my mind into calming down. As we walked through the aisles, I caught myself looking over my shoulder, expecting him to appear. And then he did. Daniel. He was standing at the far end of the aisle, his eyes locked on me. He wasn't smiling. He wasn't angry. He just stared. My legs went weak.
"Rebecca," he whispered, tugging at her sleeve.
"He's here." She turned quickly, and her face hardened when she saw him. "Stay behind me, Mom." Daniel took a slow step forward, then another. My heart pounded so loudly, I thought the whole store could hear it. Rebecca pulled out her phone and dialed 911 with trembling fingers. "Daniel," she shouted, her voice shaking but firm, "you're breaking the restraining order. Stay back." But he didn't stop. His eyes never left mine. It was as if no one else existed. "Mother," he said in a chillingly calm voice, "we're not done. You think you can destroy me? You think you can live without me?
No.
I'll always be a part of you." Shoppers gasped, some stepping aside, others whispering. But before he could take another step, the store manager rushed over. Moments later, police sirens wailed outside. The officers stormed in, pulling Daniel back as he resisted, shouting, "She's mine. She'll always be mine." Rebecca held me tightly, shielding me as the officers dragged him out. My whole body shook uncontrollably, my breath coming in shallow gasps. As they forced him into the patrol car, I realized something painful but true. Even behind bars, even with the law against him, Daniel's shadow would haunt me. But I also knew this: he wasn't as powerful as he once was. Because this time, I wasn't facing him alone. Rebecca wiped my tears and whispered, "Mom, he's losing. And we're winning. Don't forget that." I nodded weakly, but deep down one thought still gnawed at me. What if he gets out again? What if this never ends? And that night, as I lay in bed, I heard something scratch against the window. My blood ran cold. Was it the wind? Or was Daniel already back? The scratching sound against the window froze me in place. My heart hammered so loudly in my chest, I was afraid it would give me away. Slowly, I turned my head toward the glass. At first, there was nothing, just the faint reflection of my own trembling face in the window. But then a shadow moved. I gasped and clutched the blanket to my chest. My voice cracked as I whispered, "Rebecca." She burst into the room, her hair messy from sleep, holding her phone in her hand. "Mom, what is it?" I pointed a shaking finger toward the window. "Someone's out there." She hurried over and yanked the curtains open. We both stared into the dark night. For a moment, it seemed empty. But then, a figure moved near the tree line, retreating into the shadows. Rebecca's face went pale. "It's him." She dialed 911 immediately. "This is Rebecca Carter. We have a restraining order against Daniel Carter, and I just saw him outside our house." Her voice shook, but she forced herself to sound steady. The dispatcher's voice came through the speaker. "Stay inside. Lock all your doors and windows. Officers are on the way." We obeyed, locking everything, even pushing furniture against the doors. But no matter how much we tried to barricade ourselves in, I couldn't shake the feeling that Daniel was already inside. Minutes felt like hours. I sat clutching Rebecca's hand, both of us straining to hear the sound of sirens. But instead, there was a sudden thud from the back of the house. We both jumped. Rebecca grabbed a heavy lamp from the table, clutching it like a weapon. "Stay here, Mom," she whispered, though her own fear was written all over her face. "No," I said firmly, surprising myself. "We stay together." We moved slowly toward the kitchen. Another thud, and then the sound of glass cracking. My knees nearly gave way. "Oh God, he's coming in." Rebecca raised the lamp higher, her voice breaking as she shouted, "The police are on their way. Leave now, Daniel." For a moment, silence. Then, from the darkness beyond the cracked window, came his voice, low, menacing, and far too calm. "You think the police will protect you? You think anyone can keep me from what's mine?" Tears burned my eyes. I squeezed Rebecca's arm. "He won't stop, he'll never stop." And just as the glass gave way, with a shattering crash, red and blue lights flooded the yard. Officers swarmed the house, flashlights cutting through the night, voices shouting commands. Daniel's figure bolted from the broken window, disappearing into the woods behind the house. The officers ran after him, but the night swallowed him whole. Rebecca and I stood in the kitchen, glass scattered at our feet, both of us shaking. One of the officers approached us gently. "Ma'am, you're safe now. We'll find him." But as I looked out at the woods, I knew the truth. Daniel was still out there, watching, waiting, and until he was gone for good, there would be no peace. The morning after the break-in, the house was silent, but not peaceful. The broken window had been covered with a wooden board, yet it still felt like the walls were full of holes. Holes where safety used to live. I sat at the kitchen table, staring into my untouched cup of tea. Rebecca was pacing back and forth, phone pressed to her ear as she spoke with the police. "They said they searched the woods until sunrise," she explained once she hung up. "But they didn't find him." "He's gone, Mom." "Gone where?" I asked, my voice trembling. Back to the shadows. Back to waiting. Rebecca leaned on the table, both hands flat. We can't keep living like this. We either run again or we fight. Her words sent a shiver through me.
Fight.
I had spent 10 years in silence, bowing to Daniel's control, shrinking into myself. Fighting was something I had forgotten how to do. But as I looked at my daughter's tired eyes, full of both fear and fire, I realized something. If I didn't fight now, then Daniel would win forever, not just over me, but over Rebecca, too. Later that day, the sheriff himself came to speak with us. His voice was firm but kind. Ma'am, your son is dangerous. We've put out an alert in every nearby county. But he hesitated. We need your cooperation. We need you willing to testify, to tell the court exactly what he's done. My chest tightened. The memories rushed back. 10 years of horror, of silence, of being too afraid to speak. My voice cracked as I whispered, if I testify, he'll come after me harder than ever. The sheriff nodded. Maybe. But if you don't, he'll never stop. He'll always believe he still owns you. Rebecca placed her hand over mine.
Mom, please.
Don't let him keep stealing your life. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat on the porch, staring at the stars, thinking of the life I might have had if I had spoken out sooner. I thought of the years I lost, the youth stolen from me. And then, like a wave crashing over me, a new thought came. It's not too late. The next morning, I walked into the sheriff's office with Rebecca at my side. My voice shook, my hands trembled, but I said the words that had been locked inside me for 10 years. I want to testify. I'll tell you everything. The sheriff nodded gravely. Then we'll make sure you're protected. But as I stepped out of that office, a cold wind brushed my skin. Across the street, leaning casually against a lamppost, was Daniel. He was watching me, smiling. My blood froze. Rebecca grabbed my arm, her eyes wide. Mom, don't look. Just get in the car. But I couldn't move, because in that single smile, I understood what Daniel was telling me without words. If you speak, I'll silence you forever. And at that moment, I realized testifying wasn't just about bravery. It was about survival. The courtroom was colder than I expected. Not in temperature, but in spirit. The walls felt heavy, pressing down on me as I sat in the witness chair. My hands shook, but I kept them folded tightly in my lap. The judge's voice echoed. Mrs. Carter, you may begin your testimony. I swallowed hard, my throat dry. My eyes shifted for only a moment. To Daniel, sitting at the defense table, his face calm, almost smug, as if this was just another game to him. When his eyes met mine, my stomach twisted. But then, I remembered the sheriff's words, Rebecca's pleas, and the 10 years of silence that had nearly destroyed me. I took a deep breath. My name is Margaret Carter. For 10 years, I lived in silence, because my own son forced me to. The courtroom went still. Every detail poured out of me. The threats, the nights of terror, the years of control. My voice broke, tears spilling, but I did not stop. Because every word I spoke was like breaking one of the chains that had bound me for so long. Daniel's smirk faded. For the first time, I saw his jaw tighten, his eyes darken with fury. He wasn't in control anymore, and he knew it. When my testimony ended, the judge called for recess. I stepped outside the courtroom, my knees weak, but my heart lighter than it had been in years. Rebecca hugged me tightly. You did it, Mom. You finally did it. But before I could even catch my breath, chaos erupted. Shouts rang out from the hallway. The sound of a struggle. An officer's voice yelling, "Get him under control." My heart dropped. Daniel. Rebecca pulled me back just as Daniel broke free from 2 deputies, lunging down the hall, his eyes locked on me with pure hatred. Everything slowed. His hand reached for me. My scream caught in my throat. But before he could touch me, a 3rd officer tackled him to the ground with such force the walls shook. Stay down, the officer shouted, pinning him in handcuffs. Daniel roared in rage, his face red, spitting curses at me. You'll never be free of me, Mother. Never. Tears blurred my vision, but I stood tall, looking down at him. My voice was calm, steady, and louder than I ever thought it could be.
Yes.
I will. And for the first time in 10 years, I believed it. The officers dragged him away, his screams echoing down the corridor. But to me, it sounded less like a threat and more like the last gasp of a man who no longer had control. Days later, when the verdict came, guilty on all charges, I cried again. But this time, they weren't tears of fear. They were tears of freedom. Rebecca squeezed my hand and whispered, "It's over." And I knew she was right. For the first time in a decade, I could breathe. I could laugh. I could dream. And I could finally say to anyone listening, silence protects no one. Speak no matter how afraid you are. Because your voice might be the very thing that saves your life. Because remember, life is full of stories. Some break us, some heal us, but all of them teach us. Broken heart.